Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Tuesdays with the Pilgrim as we continue our reading of John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. Today we start chapter 5, and part 1 is titled, Received at the Palace Beautiful. Christian arrived at the gate where Watchful stood waiting. Then Christian asked Watchful, "Sir, what is this place? May I sleep here tonight?" He answered, "This house was built by the Lord of the Hill. He built it for the relief and security of pilgrims. Where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I have come from the city of destruction, and am going to Mount Zion. But because the sun is now set, I would like to stay here tonight, if I may." "What is your name?" "My name is now Christian, but my name at first was Graceless. For I am of the race of Japheth, whom God will persuade to dwell in the tents of Shem." "But why have you come so late? The sun has already set." "I would have been here sooner, but I am such a wretched man. I fell asleep in the arbor that stands on the hillside. In spite of this, I would have been here much sooner. But while I was sleeping, I dropped the scroll that had been given to me at the cross. I traveled all the way to the brow of the hill without knowing it was gone. Then, when I felt for it and found it was missing, with deep remorse I was forced to return to the place where I had fallen asleep. I found it there, and now have finally arrived." "Well," said Watchful, "I will call for one of the young women who lives here. If she accepts what you have to say, then, according to the house rule, she will bring you in to meet the rest of the family." So Watchful, the gatekeeper, rang the doorbell, and a serious but beautiful young woman named Discretion answered, and asked why she had been called. Watchful answered, "This man is on a journey from the city of destruction to Mount Zion. He is weary, however, and it is dark outside. He asked me if he might sleep here tonight, so I told him I would call for you." Discretion asked Christian where he had come from and where he was going, and he told her. Next she asked him what he had seen and met with thus far on the journey, and he answered her. Then she asked him his name. "It is Christian," he replied, "and I have an even stronger desire to stay here tonight because I can tell that this place was built by the Lord of the Hill for the relief and security of pilgrims." So she smiled, and tears began to form in her eyes. After a pause, she said, "I will call for 2 or 3 more members of my family." So she ran to the door and called for Prudence, Piety, and Charity, who, after a little more conversation with him, had him join the family, and many of them met him at the entrance of the house. They said, "Come in, man blessed of the Lord. This house was built by the Lord of the Hill for the purpose of showing hospitality to pilgrims like yourself." Then Christian bowed his head in appreciation and followed them into the house. After Christian was seated, they gave him something to drink. Several members of the family, Piety, Prudence, and Charity, were appointed to discourse with Christian until dinner, and so they began to talk. Conversation with Piety. Piety first addressed him. "Come, good Christian, since we have welcomed you into our house tonight, let us hear more from you about all the things that have happened on your pilgrimage. Perhaps by listening to you, we can be enriched. What first moved you to take on the life of a pilgrim?" "I am delighted that you are interested," answered Christian. "I was driven out of my native country by a dreadful sound in my ears. I learned that inevitable destruction awaited me if I continued to live there." "But how did you happen to leave your country to come this way?" "It was God's will, for when I became fearful of destruction, I didn't know where to go. But fortunately a man named Evangelist came to me as I was trembling and crying. He directed me to the wicket gate, which I never would have found on my own. He set me on the way that has led directly to this house." "But didn't you pass by the house of the interpreter?" "Yes, and I saw things there that will stick in my memory for the rest of my life. 3 things in particular. I learned how Christ, in spite of Satan's efforts, maintains his work of grace in the heart. I learned about man who had sinned beyond the point of hoping for God's mercy. And I saw a man who had a dream while he was sleeping and thought the day of judgment had come. Why? Did he tell you his dream? Yes, and I thought it was a dreadful one. My heart ached as he described it, but I'm glad I heard it. Was that all you saw at the interpreter's house? No, he showed me a stately palace. All the people inside were clothed in gold. A venturesome man came and cut his way through the armed guards that stood at the door to keep him out. Then he was invited to come in and win eternal glory. My heart got so carried away with these things that I would like to have stayed at the good man's house for a year. I knew, however, that I had to continue on my journey. And what else did you see as you traveled on the way? After going just a bit farther, Christian said, I saw a vision of one hanging and bleeding on a cross. The very sight of him made my burden fall from my back. Oh, I had groaned under a heavy burden, but then it just dropped off. This was a strange experience, for I had never before seen such a thing. Yes, and while I stood looking up, for I couldn't resist staring, 3 shining ones came to me. One of them declared that my sins were forgiven. Another stripped off my ragged clothing and gave me this embroidered coat that you see. And the third one affixed the mark that you see on my forehead and gave me the sealed scroll. With that he pulled the scroll out of his coat pocket. But you saw more than this, didn't you? Piety asked. The things I have told you were the best, but yes, I saw some other things. I saw 3 men, simple, sloth, and presumption, just a little out of the way as I was traveling on. They were lying sound asleep with fetters on their feet. But do you think I could rouse them? I also met Formality and Hypocrisy, who came tumbling over the wall, presenting to go to Zion, but they were quickly lost. I warned them, but they refused to believe me. Above all, however, I found that getting up this hill was hard work, and passing by the lions' mouths was just as difficult. I'm telling you the truth when I say that if that good man who stands by the gate had not been there, I'm not sure, after all I have been through, that I wouldn't have turned back again. But now I thank God that I am here, and I thank you for receiving me. Conversation with Prudence. Then Prudence wanted to ask a few questions. Sometimes, don't you think about the country you came from? Yes, said Christian, but with much shame and abhorrence. It's true that if I had highly regarded the country that I came from, I might have returned at an opportune time. But now I desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. But don't you still waver sometimes when you think of the things you were accustomed to? Yes, I struggle, but I don't want to. The inward and carnal thoughts, which all of my countrymen, as well as myself, delighted in, are especially troublesome. All those things are my grief now. If I could choose to have things my way, I would choose never to think of those former things again. But when I want to do what is best, that is when I find the worst is what motivates me. Do you find that sometimes it seems as though those things have been subdued, but that other times they are your greatest entanglement? Yes, but the former is seldom the case. The hours when I feel free are like gold to me. Can you remember how at times these agitating thoughts seem to be conquered? Yes, when I remember what I saw at the cross, that will do it. And when I gaze at this embroidered coat, that will do it too. And when I read the scroll that I carry close to my heart, that will do it. And when I meditate about where I am going, that also will do it. What makes you so eager to reach Mount Zion? Why, there I hope to see the one who hung dead on the cross alive again, and there I hope to be freed of all the things within me that are such a struggle to me. They say that there is no death there, and that I will live there with wonderful companions. To tell you the truth, I love him because he delivered me from my burden. And I am so tired of my inward sickness that I long to be where there is no more sin and death, and where I will be in the fellowship of those who continually cry, Holy, holy, holy. Well, there's parts 1, 2, and 3 of chapter 5, and we'll pick up next week with chapter 5, part 4, Conversation with Charity. Until then, take care, stay safe,